What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the program. It is January 20th, 2026. This is the Jeff Gerstmann Show. It's a podcast. I don't know. It's about video games. What are podcasts about anymore? I see a lot of footage of people sitting on comfortable couches with microphones craned all into them, and they all have neon signs behind them that say the stupidest shit. What am I even doing? I got arcade machines behind me, and two of the three of them don't even work. This is stupid. Hello. Let's talk about video games and the world that surrounds them here on the program. We're getting off to a start here of sorts for 2026. I gotta update my notes here. I left something out. But for me, it started with a game that is just becoming more and more important to me as a person as time goes on, and that game is, of course, Super Mario Brothers Special for the PC-88. If you're unfamiliar, the PC-88 is a Japanese computer from primarily the 80s, though I think, they made enough models of it over the years that it did kind of extend into the 90s a little bit. We've been playing a lot of Astrobot around the house. So let me start this by saying, as discussed last week, there's still quite a bit of Astrobot going on around here. We have, I believe, 9 robots left to collect. To have them all. And 2 of those are from the main game, and then the rest are from the things they added on later on. So, what's left is pretty difficult. And this was awesome because it was kind of my complaint about Astrobot at the time, is that the bulk of it was a real snoozer. It's like, this is a really charming game. It's really beautiful, and these levels are so easy. And the hiding spots where they're putting these robots and puzzle pieces are just like, hey, there's a path over here that's not the main path. Do you think you should go down it? Yeah, I guess I should go down that one and go get the one thing that's hidden over here. And then, it just was not a... It was not a challenge. There were a handful of levels that you would find that would be tougher. But by and large, it was, it was just not a very tough game. And so I think that's what originally kind of pushed me away from it a little bit. I mean, not like, oh, this is a terrible, but like, it was not engaging me. I was not keeping me focused. I was not keeping me engaged. And so I played through the vast majority of that game originally when it came out, and then kind of drifted away from it a little bit and just never really got back to it. And, now, the kids are playing games, and now they were looking for something kind of after Goat Simulator and Astrobot Astro's Playroom was installed. And so they got into that, and then I got Astrobot installed for them, and they've been chewing it away at it. My daughter is really good at it, but I was watching my son play it, and like he's ducking out of the way of stuff. He's like backing up, he's jumping and hitting them with the jets and killing stuff, and like there's like actual skills forming, and like watching it happen, you're like, wow, this is crazy. Like he's gotten like kind of good at something, but he's not good enough to finish the final levels of the game. They've been doing like the time trials, and sometimes they'll get like one. There's 2 robots in each of the time trial levels. One is like a easy to get, and one is, a little bit more of a challenge to get. And so they've been finishing those levels, but they have not been finishing them quickly. Anyway, so this is where I come in as the guy who's supposed to come in and finish these levels that they can't finish. And so I every couple of hours he comes out here, controller in hand, and goes like, "Can you come in and help me with the? I need to get a rope. You need to get one of the cousins. You need to get one of the robots for cousins." He calls them all cousins because of Katamari, and usually I'm like, I can't. I'm just trying to. But yes, okay, yes, I will come in. I'm in the middle of something, but yes, I will come in and play your damn video game. And it's down to some pretty fucking diabolical levels. Like there's one level there's like a central hub world where everybody goes after you rescue them, and there's one final level that shows up there, and I believe it's called like the grand finale or something like that. It's pretty fucking tough. It's like by that game's standards, it is like really fucking hard. So there's that, and there's like a couple of other levels that I've been like chewing away at, and like with me with this game, these are levels with no checkpoints, and you just kind of have to do them all in one go, and you die a lot. You dial in parts of the game, parts of the level, and then you move on to the next part, and you don't have that dialed in yet, and then you start messing up the early parts of the level because you got overconfident about those parts and started making dumb mistakes, and you're not even getting to the middle of the level, let alone the end of the level, and so there's a real process of making your way through these tougher levels, right? And it's hard to do in front of a 4-year-old because I'm not like a controller thrower. I never have been. But I will curse. Like I remember reviewing Super Mario Sunshine. I had to play some chunk of it with my door shut. It's a different kind of cursing, actually. That's not like this game's really hard. In Sunshine, it was more like I keep dying because the camera in this game is so fucking terrible in these levels where you don't have the jetpack that I am cursing up a storm. And so it's like, I kind of had to, so it's like I'm trying to finish these levels in front of kids and I'm kind of having to like bottle it up a little more. And that's not helping. that is not helping these levels get finished on top of that. I ended up finishing, the everything. I think we've finished everything in the main game except for this grand finale level. I think everything else is done. And then there's like 8 more robots on the time trial levels and the quote unquote hard levels that are in there, which those levels are tough, but they're not that tough. So that got me thinking about, like the process of playing these levels and getting good at them and all this other stuff, of course, reminded me of another great video game, Super Mario Brothers Special for the PC-88. And that's a game I managed to finish once. And the catch, though, is that I was streaming it at the time. This was years ago. And I couldn't finish the game in the length of like one stream, so I had to let it sit and then play it later. I had to create a save state. And when you're dealing with retro achievements, you can't do save states because that drops you down into what they call softcore mode, where kind of anything goes. Hardcore mode locks out, a lot of like cheat functionality in an emulator. A lot of that sort of stuff, it gets kind of frozen out and you can't access it. And so I have the softcore version of the You Beat the Game retro achievement for Super Mario Brothers Special. And that's been gnawing away at me slowly for, I guess it's probably like the last 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And so, after playing all this Astrobot, naturally I thought like, it's time to get back on that horse and time to really play some quality platforming action. In Super Mario Brothers Special, which in case you haven't seen it, the stream from last night, which I played through it last night. That stream is uploading right now. I don't think it's live on YouTube, but by the time this podcast is over, it will probably be there. It's taking forever to process because YouTube has decided to, really stopped processing AV1 encoded videos at a decent speed, and I wanted to see if they had fixed that. So I did this one in AV1. They have not. So I decided that I wanted to try to, start playing it and see if I could, the last night I was just like, I'll play some of it. I probably won't get very far because it's been a long time since I've really played it seriously, and let's just see where I can get to. And I ended up, well, you'll have to watch the video to really. I don't have the achievement. I guess I'll say that. And it's a frustrating situation, but that game, I guess in case you haven't seen it, it's an amazing mess of a game. I don't know, if you're not familiar with early arcade or early computer games from the 80s, this is a lot of computers did this. I would say even well into the 90s, this was not completely unheard of. Sometimes games would just run worse when there were more things on screen. And, if you had like a 286 or earlier or something, sometimes these games just ran like shit, and they ran really unevenly. And like the pace of the game changes kind of at will. And it's insane to think about now. Like all these years later, like we still talk about frame pacing and frame timing and little things like that, but like we're not like this. Mario has a timer in it, and you have to finish the levels before the timer expires, and you can literally watch the timer tick down faster or slower depending on how much other stuff is on the screen at a given time. Like Mario's run speed changes. And with all of that, the responsiveness of the controls actually starts to go out the window when things get bogged down. And again, this is something that would happen relatively recently, relatively commonly with games running on computers through the 80s and 90s, even in the States. So it's not necessarily something that is just exclusive to this hot Japanese computer. This is something that plenty of games here in the US did as well. On top of that, the PC-88 is not emulated perfectly, and so playing it in a form where I can get those retro achievements, meaning on a software-based emulator, that feels like it's a little more uneven than there's a PC-88 core available for the Mister that seems to be a little bit more accurate to the real thing. You can find some real hardware, some video of the game being played on real hardware on YouTube, and get a feel for what it's supposed to look like. The reality is it's not that different from the emulator. It's not some massive change. But on the Mister, like the stuff runs a little bit more evenly. But you can't get retro achievements on an FPGA based device. Like it's not, that's not something, because of the way that all of that stuff works. It's not nearly as easy to implement any of that sort of stuff. But they say the same thing about save states on the Mister, and a lot of those cores some of those cores have save state support these days, after years of not having it. And so I think that's, whatever. If someone sat down and really was dedicated to it, maybe they could pull it off, but it's probably not. Anyway, I have to probably play more of that game, and it's a disaster. The developers at Hudson, who had gotten the rights to put this game out on Japanese computers, made a whole new game using the Super Mario Brothers 1 kind of template. They came up with their own levels that are devious and hellish and nightmarish in comparison to the original Super Mario Brothers 1 level design. They added new enemies and things like the new power-ups. Like they put enemies from the original Mario Brothers. They put barrels from Donkey Kong in it. It's a really crazy They put the Hummer brothers in it. Yeah, there's a lot going on in this game that was not in the original game and is not in any of the other kind of like official Nintendo developed Mario games of the era. And it is this. I find it to be this endlessly fascinating slice of Mario history, where it's kind of on the tail end of Nintendo, thinking to license its games out to other creators for production on other machines. This is something that happened pretty regularly leading up to right about here. They didn't do too much of this past this point. But you used to see Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. Atari made Donkey Kong for a lot of home computers here in the States. And they did ports of Donkey Kong Jr. as well. And Popeye, Parker Brothers did published the home computer versions of Popeye back in the day, because Nintendo just wasn't doing that stuff. Atari had a whole division. Even though Atari had computers of their own, they started a whole division called Atari Soft that was out there porting the games that they had the rights to the Apple II and the Commodore and some of these other machines as well. And so there was just this whole other landscape in the West. And it's interesting to see something like that happen in Japan. It's interesting to think of Hudson as the company responsible for developing this. And it's just a fascinating game, even though it feels like when we talk about like the pressing the buttons, holding the controller, everything, like this game is a disease. It feels so terrible. It's so inconsistent and also incredibly fascinating. And I love it. I legitimately love that goddamn video game. It is a godforsaken, like it is the type of video game that you would get a sticker and put on the box about like this is not a place of honor. There's nothing to be, like it's a real disaster. And I am completely in love with it. It's such an interesting thing, and it's broken in so many fascinating ways that I just So I found myself playing that again, and I'm still thinking about it after what happened last night. I'm still thinking about it, man. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk more about what else is going on in modern video games. Hey, are you looking to brew better coffee in the morning, but you don't really know where to begin? I mean, yeah, right? It can be a nightmare that you go out to the store, you're like, what makes this brew different from the other? Or maybe you know exactly what you're looking for, and it's just hard to find in your area. That happens all the time. That's why there's Trade. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the U.S. Their team of expert baristas, tasters, and Q-graders use real coffee knowledge to match you with coffees you'll love. They curate over 500 coffees so you can try something new with every delivery. Trade has spent more than a decade building relationships with over 55 top roasters across the United States, giving you access to coffees you won't find anywhere else. Every recommendation is personalized, not algorithmic, so you discover new roasters and coffees perfectly suited to your taste. Each bag is roasted to order and delivered fresh to your door at prices comparable to grocery brands, but with cafe-level quality in every cup. Take Trade's quick quiz. They'll find your perfect match. And if your first bag isn't quite to your liking, they'll replace it for free as part of their first bag guarantee policy. That's right. Yeah. My wife has a history in coffee and has, some pretty specific things that she's always looking for. And, since we moved, some of the stuff that she liked where we used to live before has been hard to find. Trade had that stuff, and was able to just deliver it. And that's been pretty awesome to be able to get our hands on some stuff that's, like smaller batch, local roaster type stuff that, you're not just going to find at your own local grocery store. So, you can get in there, and if you know exactly what you're looking for, chances are they'll have it. And if you don't know, they've got this whole quiz You can go through and go like, well, what do I like about coffee? I like this, I like this, I like this. And they'll make handy recommendations that can guide you. It's awesome. Right now, Trade is offering 50% off a 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/Jeff. That's drinktrade.com/Jeff to get 50% off 1 month. Give it a shot. Hey, this is something I've been thinking about for a couple of days now. Like, I was having some trouble with Windows, and I was fixing some Windows issues, and it got me kind of thinking, dude, is Microsoft doing anything well right now? Is there anything, any part of the Microsoft business that, like, you look at and go, oh, they're killing it. Look at that. They're doing a fucking great, I mean, and they're killing it. Not they're killing it. They're killing it, bro. Not they're killing it. They're murdering their business. They're taking it out back and dunking it in a bucket of water, and they're putting their businesses into a burlap sack and throwing the sack into the river. I mean, bro, doggers, Shaka, we're killing it, bro. Lines off the toilet tank on me on payday. And how much of that is just inertia? Yeah, like someone saying, oh, Microsoft Excel is still the king of the spreadsheet. Like, sure, yeah, I don't know, yeah, but like, yeah, Outlook is fucking terrible. Windows, this kind of started up again, just seeing a lot of the conversation about Linux, and then obviously this is not something that is like a widespread, everyone's switching to Linux, but it does feel like there's some canary in the coal mine to this, where it's just something that more and more people are talking about. People that are just like giving up on Windows and going, I'm just switching to Linux, and this is and everything I do works over there and it's working great. And or like, you find people that go like, I have to keep Windows installed because there's one game I play that runs like shit in Linux, but other than that, I'm over here now. And it's just been really fascinating to see that talk pick up. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. But like, think about it, man. Windows is the bastion. Like, Windows is I think about it in terms of Xbox, right? Like the future of Xbox is Windows. Meanwhile, over when you start asking people about Windows, they're like, yeah, it's fucking dog shit. We're trying to get it off. We're trying to move to Linux. So it's not like Windows is doing some like amazing work. I got off the Windows Insider builds. I used to be on the beta branch of Windows 11, and I was installing new builds all the time. And, there weren't always new features in them, but sometimes there was, and you're like, oh, that's interesting to get a look at this stuff. Nowadays, when they run a blog that like has the build notes for everything, and I opted out of all of those and went to just like, whatever 25H2 or, whatever the current release version of Windows is. And when I go to their blog and go like, what's still going on in those beta builds? Every single update is like, we fucking crammed Copilot into like 3 more places. We found a new way for you can right click here and tell Copilot to do some AI shit. And most of this is stuff that only works if you have a computer that has an NPU in it. Like, hey man, new notepads rolling out to everybody, and it's got Copilot in it now. Fuck you. And it sucks. Like, everything they're doing for Windows right now just feels like less and less geared towards actually making Windows better. Actually making the way that you use a computer today work better. They're like, no, this is work. Like, it's like the final promise of Cortana. Like when they first rolled Cortana out as like a voice assistant, and they're like, this is going to be great. You're just going to be talking to your computer like it's fucking Star Trek, dog. This is going to be sick as fuck. And it didn't work for shit. And it's like, and now they're just taking another run at it. Like, man, when Copilot really gets up and running, you're just going to be talking to your computer. And then anybody can use one. You don't have to know what the fuck a C drive is. And that's fine. I don't think people should, it's dumb that people need to know what a C drive is, and most people don't these days. You should. It's not the worst thing to know. But like, dude, this shit sucks. It's fucking bad. And meanwhile, like, Windows itself is just becoming this increasingly stagnant fucking piece of fucking software. And so naturally, yeah, dude, Linux is actively developed, and different flavors of Linux are being developed in different directions, and you can find one that matches the direction that you have for where you want your OS to be. And it's a glorious, beautiful time, unless you play these handful of games that you just can't really easily play on Linux. And if you're playing a lot of games, the number of builds of Linux that are, likely to be friendly to you without knowing a lot more command line nonsense than you may want to know, like, yeah, it's not for everybody. But the conversations are happening in such a larger way that it really just feels like, man, you guys are just pissing away everything. And again, if the future of Xbox is dependent on Windows, and every single build of Windows I see is just like cramming more fucking trash into it, what is that going to do for the future of Xbox? Are they all going to go down on one ship? How does this work? It's left me kind of shook. I think that there are things about the approach that they seem to be taking with Xbox that I think are, it's risky stuff, but when you look at where they're at, I think it makes a ton of sense. And you go like, yeah, okay, yeah, push into Windows and all that other stuff. But as Windows has been, going further and further downhill, and alongside it, people are noticing, and people are like looking for alternatives. Like, people are not satisfied with Windows, are they? I guess satisfied's a weird thing. Like, I look at it and go like, yeah, I don't know, man. Windows works the way I want it to. And then every so often there's an update that, kind of fucks it up or whatever. But also, it could be better. I was flipping through TikTok, as I'm prone to do, and I found there was some podcast clip of a guy talking about a file explorer replacement that he had coded. It was 2 megabytes. It was super fast. Like, the guy that was the host of the podcast was like losing his mind. It's just like, you did this all in 2 megs. What the fuck's going on? Like, this is crazy. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And so I looked into it. It's called File Pilot, which I might not use the word pilot, because pilot, I think, is an increasingly cursed word to use in conjunction with Windows anything these days, but it is not an AI driven piece of software as far as I can tell. Anyway, it's a file explorer replacement. So navigating your system, copying files, moving things from folder to folder. Something I do pretty often as I am moving around videos, and I am moving around, zipped up chunks of old video games, like all of the other stuff. I do a lot of file manipulation. It's one of the primary things I do on this computer. Anthrax B says you want everything. Everything is good. Void Tools makes something called Everything that I used to use, and no, it did not actually. No, I found that Everything was not what I was looking for. This is something that could legitimately replace File Explorer completely. In fact, there are options in there that let you do that. There are a few things. It's in active development, and eventually, it is something that is going to cost money, and so there are caveats there. But like, I couldn't drag files out of a 7-zip window into a File Pilot window. It just didn't work. And so there's work to be done. It's not something that's even hit 1.0. So I'm not sitting here saying this is definitely a replacement right now. You need to install it today. Like, it's kind of a wild thing, but it moves so fast, and indexes your files so quickly that you just look at it and go, what the fuck is wrong with Windows that the regular File Explorer is so fucking bad? Like, I always thought the File Explorer was like, sometimes it's a little funky, but like, it's generally okay. And now, like, having seen some alternatives that you look at and go like, oh, you actually could replace this with this and it would work. You're like, what a bloated, sluggish, slow-ass piece of shit. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I don't know what you do at that point, man. Like, between that and the ongoing reports that flavors of Linux are better at running Windows games than Windows is in some situations. Like, this is just a bad direction for this entire company to be moving in. Forget about the, and then you get into like, I don't know, the Office or 365, whatever the fuck they're calling it this week. And you get into, some of their kind of software and services side and like OneDrive and all of this other crap that they make, Microsoft Teams, like all this stuff that's like, yeah, I guess this sort of works, but like, this is not a leading tool in this field. It's probably not even top 3. This is shitty. And so, like, what is Microsoft doing well? I sat down and thought about it. I said, like, is Microsoft doing anything well other than complaining about, oh, poor us, no one's using AI? And all I can really come up with is like, hey, you know what? Some of the games, the quality of some of the games they are publishing are good. If you look at Obsidian and go, oh yeah, Microsoft, then sure. Outer Worlds 2 was a hell of a game. Forza Horizon is a great driving series. But like, that's, that's all. Like, when you look at like the top of Microsoft and the decisions being made and just the products, fuck the decisions. Like, you look at the products of those decisions and you just go like, what the fuck, man? Like, this is all headed in a bad direction right now. None of that's like irreversible, but you just look at it and go like, this is the shits, man. There's Satya Nadella is increasingly seems like a real fucking idiot. And so there's another story hit today as he's talking at the World Economic Forum. The headline on the Irish Times: AI boom could falter without wider adoption, Microsoft chief warns. Broader global use is essential if technology is to deliver lasting growth. And it just feels like this like weird attempt to push, like, oh no, if the people don't use it, it's not going to take off. Like, hey, guess what? It fucking sucks. Like, why do you think people aren't using it? It's not because they're like, these plebeians, they just don't know how good it is. Like, this shit sucks. It's fucking trash. Like, oh no, people aren't using your fucking garbage product. Oh, what are we going to do? For this not to be a bubble, by definition, it requires that the benefits of this are much more evenly spread. He noted that a telltale sign of if it's a bubble would be if only tech groups were benefiting from the rise of AI rather than companies in other sectors. However, Mr. Nadella said he was confident that AI would prove to be transformative across industries, such as helping to develop new drugs. I'm much more, and this is back to a quote. This is from the Irish Times, by the way. I'm much more confident that this is a technology that will, in fact, build on the rails of cloud and mobile, diffuse faster, bend the productivity curve, and bring local surplus and economic growth all around the world. You mean the machine that guesses words and guesses them badly? Your fucking slop factory? You're integrating the slop factory into everyone's fucking OS at a point that, like, people are now like, we need to uninstall that shit. I got a fucking productivity curve you can bend right fucking here, man. Are you kidding me? It is so fucking out of touch with like the reality of where these tools are. It's really wild. It's like, it's the sort of thing that like you just listen to it and it feels like it's going beyond this idea of like, oh, well, they've got to say this because they've got to, they've pumped so much money into it that they have to keep pushing this, and it's but like, this just feels like irresponsible at this point. Like they are in too deep on a product that is not doing the thing that they thought it was going to do. Or did they ever even think it was going to do it? Or were they just like, well, this is an exciting new sector and we've got to own it and control it? Meanwhile, it feels like, Microsoft and OpenAI invested all this money and stuff, and like Google is starting to catch up in a big way, and so but none of this shit is profitable anyway. It's not like Gemini's like, well, Google's got it all figured out. It's like, no, I don't know. They just made a few more deals. They're going to integrate Google's shit into Apple's shit, and people probably still won't use it. It's just like the idea that these guys are out here after years of trying to promote how amazing this stuff is are now saying like, people need to use it. It's like, I don't know, maybe people did. Do you ever stop and think that maybe people actually did try it out and find it to be extremely limited in its use? And on your end, it's something that is like not getting any cheaper to develop or run or train or anything? Is this maybe just like a fucking bad product? Did anyone stop to think that maybe these products are actually fucking terrible? People like to point to like the drug thing and go like, it's gonna invent new drugs. Like, yeah, man, I don't know. Like if I fucking, we could get a bingo hopper ball thing right now and just write a bunch of elements on it and pull them out in random orders, and we could technically invent new drugs. I mean, sure, would it be able to format them in ways you go like, maybe this is something? But like, I don't know. Do you need a machine that just comes up with infinite combinations of drugs that might do something? It's like, well, I don't know. This looks a lot like a drug that does this, and then it does this other way, and maybe it would do this. Like, okay, well, what is that? Couldn't people just do? Okay, so now what? Do we have to now we have to go and test this on rats for a while? What yeah, exactly. Yes. Teflon Billy says, a machine that invents the new crocodile. Now you're talking. If you could get me a machine that's just like, but people did that. People did that. All the research chemicals, all your fucking 2CT7s and 2CTs, like all of that sort of stuff, the adjacent hallucinogenics, like that's all just people sitting around and go like, I don't know, we could just like change one molecule in this and see if it fucking makes you see the geometric fucking laser elves faster with this stuff than it does with just straight LSD or fucking, I don't know, man, you want to keep smoking DMT, it's probably bad for you. Like maybe we should make something that's just like, okay, you can take this and it will make the, I don't know. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. And all of that chained up to, Microsoft, which theoretically is a good business. Like, theoretically, they have made products that people have wanted and, dare I say it, even enjoyed. And so to watch all of those products fall into disrepair while you've got this dipshit at the fucking summit going like, oh, it could be a bubble, but but not if people use it. And none of that is like, hey, we need to make these products not suck shit. At no point is there any sort of reflection on it like, these products are not where they need to be for people to use them, and maybe they never will be. Instead, it's just like, well, if the people would use this stuff, then our business that would be good for our business. If people were to use this garbage, wouldn't that be great? Like, fucking stupid. Are you crazy? Oh my god. Anyway, it's frustrating as a longtime Windows user. And also frustrating as someone who has followed video games for decades, to watch this stuff happen, because you just look at it and go like, man, like they're taking their eye off. Like this is like the bigger, crazier version of like Matrick and his crew going, we've got video games fucking figured out. Let's get into television. This is like the higher level, like, oh, the OS stuff is like, yeah, I don't know, man. That stuff is as good as it's going to get. Video games, I don't know. Yeah, I guess. We need to be chasing the next thing. And this is definitely the next thing. And like letting everything in its wake just fall into fucking disrepair. It's a bummer. It's a real fucking bummer, man. Meanwhile, Thursday, they'll have their developer direct thing. and they'll talk about Forza, which that's got a date. That's like a May release, right? Yeah. Well, I guess there was an in-game ad that showed up. Well, I don't know. This is something that is a Twitter post out of Saudi Arabia or whatever. Okay, but I guess Video Games Chronicle has followed up on it and discovered that this is the right release window. But it does sound like Forza Horizon 6 will be out mid-May. Play 4 days early, starting May 15th. So May 19th for Game Pass people. You know, their best customers, the Game Pass subscriber. Congratulations, you get it 4 days after everyone else. Does that feel good? You can always upgrade to the premium edition and you could play it 4 days early. Even though you're giving them, what is it, $30 a month? What is 300? Like, come on! They will also be talking about Fable, which sounds like it's maybe like a late summerish kind of release. And this will be the first time seeing Fable in a bit. So I am curious to see what they end up having to show. It's good that they ended up, like settling on a direction for that thing, because it really, my understanding of Fable is that there was a while there where they were like not even sure that the game needed to be funny. Some number of years ago, like there was a part of that development process where they were maybe like, oh yeah, we're just gonna make this game into, and they're like, no, like it needs, like there's supposed to be kind of a sense of humor, right? There's and so they hit upon something that they're at least happy enough with to see through the rest of development. And I'm curious to see what that ends up being, because I feel like all the stories out of Fable have been like, yeah, they're just having trouble finding it. They're having trouble finding what it is. And those stories are now old. Obviously, they've been marching in this direction for some time now. If this game is going to come out in, 8 months, 7 months, or I guess more like 6, yeah, somewhere. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm really curious to see that. Also, like, what does Fable mean in 2026? It doesn't really mean much of anything. Like, I think it means like, all right, this kind of inherently British comedy. Like, obviously, Molyneux is long gone. He's working on his thing. And they've got whatever it is they're doing, and they're in their not Fable game. And Playground Games is on it, and so like it's probably a very different sensibility, and we'll see. They got that guy from the fucking IT crowd in it, I guess. So there's that. I really liked Fable 1 and 2, and 3 is not a great game, but 3 was okay. 3 was totally fine. It was no 2. 3 was a game that came out too soon after 2, and it was like, oh, y'all just made Fable 2 again, huh? Okay. Like, Fable 2 was really good. So I guess good on you, but also but hey. Yeah, just it's something that it's got my hackles up. I don't know, like there's something really frustrating about the direction of Microsoft in a large sense, right? I mean, we talk a lot about Xbox and the stuff that they're doing or not doing, and I think, like, again, generally, like, taken in a vacuum, you go like, yeah, okay, the things they're doing with Xbox to move forward make a lot of sense. There's a lot of potential. They have to kind of thread a needle there. But like, dang, dude, if they can pull it off, that'll be really interesting. And then you look at Windows 11 and go like, this thing is like faulty. Like this thing is headed in the wrong direction. There needs to be a ton of work done to Windows to make it better at running games, and a better environment if you don't have a mouse or a keyboard, and like all of this other stuff that feels like it has to happen, and every single update of Windows is like every fifth update of Windows you see like a little smidge of like, oh, they made this change to the Xbox full screen experience, and there's a little thing here they did, but then the vast majority of it is like, now you can right click on an image to blur out the background, and you're like, fuck off, what? Now you can, in Notepad, you can clean up your writing by having a computer rewrite it for you. I'm like, this is Notepad. I want the most bare bones experience imaginable because it's Notepad. I'm trying to just this is not where I would do any serious writing. You killed WordPad so that you could go and ruin Notepad? Like, what the fuck are we doing? I mean, other than installing Notepad++ and thumbing our nose at this whole fucking situation. But at what point have you ship of Theseists your OS to such a degree that you just look at it and go like, this is stupid. I should just install Linux. And that's, that's not a massive number of people today. But you do look at it and go, yeah, there's a lot more people talking about this than there used to be. And that's not a good sign for, Windows, but now also Xbox. So I don't know, something that just kind of like was on my mind in the wake of a lot of this stuff. So what's up with the news? Marathon got a release date. This leaked out. I guess a video showed up on the Xbox store earlier than they had originally planned. But Marathon will be out on March 5th. They're selling it. It's $40. There'll be a more expensive edition for people who want more hot skins. And they put out a trailer. They announced their voiceover cast because it's not, I don't know. It's a lot of people talking over the radio, I'm guessing, and not a lot of people you see in cutscenes, just given the nature of the game and its story. I have hopes. I'm not going to call them high hopes, but I have hopes for Marathon. As I've continued to say, I hope Marathon ends up being cool. I think the visual style of that game, the typeface treatments and some of the things they're doing, I think look real nice. Kylie Hyde says, I bet they're real shook by Arc Raiders. I think the opposite. I think the success of Arc Raiders has probably given them a certain amount of hope and thought of like, oh man, there is a way for a game like this to actually be successful. Like maybe we won't be as successful as Arc Raiders, or maybe we'll be more successful as Arc Raiders, but like there's a pathway. You look at it and go like, oh, huh. Okay. Like something, right? And so if they can find their way to tweak it in the right way and make that thing work, maybe they can. It feels like they're lucking their way into a certain amount of this. But like, if anything, I think they're probably just shook by, a lot of layoffs. The thing where they had to overhaul the look of the game at the, maybe not the 11th hour, but maybe like the 10th hour. They did that play test that people shit all over, and then apparently they've done more closed play tests that have been more favorably received. And so I think I have to imagine there's a lot of just like, what the fuck is this game? What's going to happen with this game? We have no idea, But you can at least point to Arc Raiders and go, there's a success story that is at the very least adjacent to the game we're making. And there's some lessons that they can actually probably take, especially from the like, oh, there's a lot of people that don't want to engage in a bunch of PvP combat, and are there things we can learn there about solo queues? And I think they've already addressed the solo queue thing from that open beta they had. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's something fascinating about all of this. That if they can mix up the right parts in Marathon, I think there's potential there. It'll be a shame if that game is bad. because I think there's stuff about the visual style that they're showing that I look at and go like, this is actually kind of fucking cool. Like, I would like to play a game that looks like this, but the game has to be real good. And if you're making an extraction shooter, a genre that I am not that into already, it's gonna have to be real cool for me to get into it. I don't know. But I think there's I bet on some level there's probably a lot of people at Bungie that are just like, we've got to get this thing out the door. Like, this has been such a slog, such an insane path to market for this product. Meanwhile, all the while, Destiny 2 is doing what it's doing, and like there's just a lot of real crazy. It's just, I bet it's been real fucking insane for the people that are there. What else is going on? Valve has clarified a lot of the rules, rewritten some of the stuff that it's put out there around AI disclosure. This was stuff that was probably overly vague with the way that they put it out, and some developers were left going like, like, if I wrote this in a program that has an AI option, but I didn't use it, do I still need to disclose that we use this tool? That we did, and so Valve has clarified what they expect on Steam with regards to AI disclosure. This is something that I think Simon Carless originally pointed out, videogameschronicle.com, then re-pointed it out. The two things that Valve wants developers to disclose are when AI is used to generate content that is in the game, its store page, or marketing materials. The second is AI content generated during gameplay, and whether the game in question generates AI-created images, audio, text, and other content. So if you're using, if you are using Visual Studio, if the tools you are using to write code have like some kind of AI hook in them, that is not something that they are focusing on for disclosure. Like, they're focusing more on things that would be put where AI generated shit is put directly in front of the player. And that's probably the right distinction to make. When it comes to the things that players will probably care about when it comes to disclosing AI, it is, is this content generated by people or what? And is content being generated on the fly, and this, like physical, observable, tangible things in the game. I think that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense to clarify, because I think it was a little overly vague for people. You did see some developers going like, I don't know where the line is as to where I'm supposed to say this. And so that's probably a pretty smart update. And just as part of this story, Video Games Chronicle notes that maybe interest in this is going, well, I don't know. According to last year's Game Developers Conference survey, a majority of developers, 52%, reported working at companies that utilize generative AI tools. However, as usage has gone up, curiosity has gone down. 9% of developers surveyed said that their companies were interested in generative AI tools, down from 15% last year. 27% said their companies had no interest in using them, a 9-point increase from 2024. So it feels like developers are kicking the tires on the tools and going, yeah, no. Not across the board, but there are a chunk of companies that are just like finding like, yeah, this doesn't actually do anything for us, which I think largely mirrors my experience with, trying some of this stuff out as well. So probably smart of Valve to clarify that sort of stuff for developers. Tomorrow, Ubisoft will be updating 3 Far Cry games to run at 60 frames per second on modern consoles. It's cool that they're doing this, and it's also kind of weird because, like, I don't, I guess some of these kind of come for free. Anyway, Far Cry 3, Far Cry Blood Dragon, and Far Cry Primal will be getting updates to allow them to run at 60 frames per second on the current PlayStation and Xbox. I guess this is kind of interesting because it does kind of get people talking about the franchise again at a time when, there really isn't much to say. Obviously there's a TV show in development, right? Like is it a movie or yeah, it's a show. That's right. They're doing they said they were doing like an anthology series or something. The It's Always Sunny guy is doing that. And then there is a new game in development. And also Far Cry 3 is probably the best one of those for most players. Far Cry 2 is the best game for a very specific type of player. But 4, I don't know, 4 is a better video game, but the story in 3 is better, is what I would say. 3 is where they started down this road, and Primal is the peak. Right now, Primal's I remember Primal being a fucking mid at best, a pretty bad game coming off the heels of what they had done, especially like with Blood Dragon's probably not a game you can go back to. I mean, you'll be able to now, and it'll run at 60 frames per second, but like, I'm gonna guess that the style and comedy of Blood Dragon might not hold up super well. But 3 and 4, those are pretty cool games. 5 is where I hit a point of like, well, Primal really, but like 5 didn't really help either. Of just like, God, dude, I am fucking done with this shit. And then they kept going, and yeah, I don't know, man. I really liked Far Cry 3. There was a moment there that they were having with that game. And I wonder what you do. Whatever. It's something that needs like dramatic change. A dramatic freshening up, I suppose, is what I would say. Not even necessarily a change, but like there's we've talked a lot about open world fatigue and how that might be wrapping back around into people kind of maybe being okay with certain types of open world games again. But like, what do you do? It's an interesting, maybe you spin back in the direction of Far Cry 2. Far Cry 2 was inconvenient in very interesting ways, right? You're fucking getting malaria. Your guns are jamming all the fucking time. You got grenades rolling at you down the hill. Fire is everywhere. It's a fucking nightmare, right? Like, that's cool. It's not a convenient game to play. It's not like I'm going to lay back and like, that's, it is a much more serious video game than Far Cry 3. And I would still say I think Far Cry 3 is a better game overall, and also a infinitely more approachable video game for more players than 2 was at the time. But times have kind of changed, right? Like when Far Cry 2 came out at a time when was the Far Cry 2 release date? 2008. I feel like 2008 is like, it's not the peak, but 2008 is definitely like at a time when games were at their most tutorialized or continuing to head in the direction of like, yo, we are going to make you crouch under this fucking log until you know how to fucking crouch. And really kind of holding a player's hand And, like difficulty in games becoming a very, like not most games were seemingly getting easier at the time, I think. I don't know. But Far Cry 2 was, for its time, fairly uncompromising. And I think we're now at a point here, and maybe they've missed the window a little bit on it, because it feels like some of that stuff is maybe not as popular as it was, maybe 5 years ago or something like that. But like, I think you have more players that are willing to accept the idea of an uncompromising video game. Or less compromising. I don't want to say like a zero compromise, but like I'm saying, like, if you look at the popularity of something like a Silk Song, obviously, I think the ongoing popularity of, From Software's output and the difficulty of those games and their willingness to, not handhold in the same way. And some of the other games that we've seen over the years that have not been afraid to be harder video games, and hardened video games in some cases, right? Like Far Cry 2, you could say it kind of, in some ways, it points to a larger push in the direction of survival games and some of the things that would come to pass. I mean, it's not necessarily one of those games, but like it's definitely, kind of moving. You see it on if you chart out that line, Far Cry 2 is on that line, right? So maybe if you did another game like that, maybe if you actually sat down and said, okay, we're gonna lean in on this sort of stuff, maybe you could make that work. But do you make that work to the numbers that Ubisoft needs? That's probably the problem there. Is like, is a hardcore or harder core Far Cry game going to appeal? I think from where I'm sitting, I think you risk it, because I wouldn't want another Far Cry game in the same template that they were cranking them out in there for a while. Like, like you look at like Far Cry 6 or whatever the fuck it was. Like you look at 5, especially. Like 5, I like 6, I'd bailed on. Not because it was necessarily like a terrible game. It was just like, I've fucking played so many of these, I just don't want to do this anymore. I thought going into 6 that I was like, oh yeah, cool, man, a new Far Cry. I'm ready for a new Far Cry. It's been a while. And like, turns out no. But I don't know. Ubisoft is not really in the business of making uncompromising video games. So I doubt that's what we'll get. But I don't know. I that seems like a difficult problem to solve. Like, if you had to sit down and go like, hello, you're now in charge of the new Far Cry game. What are you going to do about it? You have a lot of masters to serve, and a lot of them involve money. Like, okay. Well, shit. If we need to make a lot of money, then we can't go make the weird, insane Far Cry game that we should probably be making, because that will not be. Anyway, those 60 frames per second updates are out tomorrow. I don't know that I need that in my life, but good. More games should get updates like that. In this era of backwards compatibility, it's kind of cool to be like, hey, if you're going to play this on a PlayStation 5 instead of a 4, like, we're going to unlock this frame rate. We're going to do some things to help you get more out of this game. It's not going to freshen it up. It's not a full remake. It's not a full reboot. They did that anyway. But hey, it's going to be a more pleasant experience to go back to some of these games. Awesome. Like, okay. Like, that's a good thing. In other Ubisoft news, we were just in time for me to learn how to actually pronounce his name. Julian Garrity has left Ubisoft. He was had kind of become the face of the Division franchise, and he was gone in a little while there and came back and was like just a week ago out there talking up the Division 3 and saying like, oh yeah, I'm not going to really say anything about it, but it's been in development for a long time. He has left for Electronic Arts, And there's an update for Power Toys available. Thanks, Windows notification. Thought I had all those muted, but what the fuck are you gonna do? He was also the lead on Star Wars Outlaws. So which obviously same there, but now he is joining the Battlefield team. And there has not been any announcement about specifically what his role is as a part of Battlefield Studios. So yeah, that's maybe kind of weird considering, again, he was kind of just out there talking up the Division 3, a game that we don't really know all that much about at this point. I bet there'll be some sewers for you to walk through and shoot people with guns in it. I bet you will find new guns to equip, and some of them will have set bonuses. Stop me if you've designed the Division 3 before, but I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to walk through a city that doesn't have a lot of people in it. I mean, maybe that's the dramatic thing they're changing. Like if you think about the dollar flu, a great term. If you think about a Division game that was, largely developed and primarily written, if not post-COVID, then during COVID, where we now have actual data about how humans would react to some sort of evil fucking virus, and the answer is they would react in the worst, dumbest ways possible. There's probably an interesting story thing you could do with the Division 3 that I don't know that I want to play. Well, we're talking about questionable ideas for upcoming video games. That's, oh God. But I feel like we learned a lot about ourselves and about society over the last 5 years. And I don't think a lot of people like what they saw. What's that video game about? Maybe we'll find out. Speaking of video games that we don't know what they're about, New World Eternum has been announced for shutdown. It will shut down next year. So, July 31st, 2027. This is the MMO that Amazon published. And you remember Amazon kind of laid off a bunch of people not that long ago, and they were like, we got some more details on our games coming up here. They have announced the update, and the update is there will be no more updates. They have pulled it off of store shelves, and they are going to be shutting it down next year. And you will not be able to purchase in-game currency anymore. So it's like if you bought New World already, you can still play it, but they will not sell you a copy of it anymore. I looked at the Steam page for this, and apparently I played some of this game. But I'm looking at like screenshots of it and stuff, and like, dude, I have no fucking idea what this is. Like, I remember that Amazon had picked up a couple of MMOs, and like they were localizing a couple of like Korean games, and then this is the one that they made themselves, or I super don't remember, man. Which game this is, but apparently I did play some of this at some point. It made a lasting impact, as you can clearly tell. And I don't know, maybe I will install it, I guess. So this is so this as videogameschronicle.com, your home for the news, notes, there was a lot of people cut at Amazon Games Orange County, which is the studio that worked on New Worlds. So yeah, Yeah. So they are going to be shutting that game down in a year. Like I looked it up, and I was trying to remember what it was, but there was a game that Amazon was publishing that they kept sending out press releases about in a way that was just like, oh, no one is playing this game, huh? And it was New World. And when I looked, I was like, what was the game that they were sending out? Lost Ark. Lost Ark was the other one, right? Skookum Chucher points out that it was Lost Ark in the live chat. Thank you. Thank you, Skookum Chucher. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for the news. Oh, you know what? They just announced they like the ratings board leaked this, but they have finally announced the next Life is Strange reunion. Deck 9 will develop it. If you want the closure between Max and Chloe, that is what they are pitching here to bring that story to a close. That'll be out March 26th. Life is Strange feels like a thing that was like done really well, and then they made a bunch more of them, and people decided that they were not that into it. Some of that sounds like some of that stuff was not all that well made. It's not necessarily the fault of players for moving on or whatever, but but yeah, they like Life is Strange was really cool, and then every other one they put out after that, I remember looking at it going like, this is not what I'm not sure that I need any more of this to begin with, but also this doesn't seem like it's nearly as good as any of that other stuff. So yes, that game has been announced. That will close out wherever that storyline ended up. Congratulations to all involved for that. Have you played any Hytale? Like to hear some people tell it Hytale is the biggest game in the world. It's like they pre-sold like millions of copies of it. It's a Minecraft style game that is in extremely early access. People want to pitch it as Minecraft 2, and that seems like a weird yeah, I don't know. I picked it up, I bought a copy of it, and I have not had too much time to dig into it. And yeah, I know it's moddable. There's a story going around today that says that people have modded original Minecraft into it, so that now Hytale can boot original Minecraft and run it, which is all right, sure. Fuck it, why not? And I don't know, like I like Minecraft, but I like it at a very base level where I just kind of want to build a cave and put some glass in the sides of it so I can see outside, and then I want it to rain and I can stand there and I can look out the window, and that's it. And I want to just do that over and over again. So I don't know. Like, I'll probably try to do that in Hytale, and see how that goes. But yeah, I don't know. They're selling 3 versions of it, and like the expensive version is just like, here's more skins and capes. Like, all right, sure. I don't know. But Hytale seems like in a universe that has been filled with games that have tried to knock off Minecraft or topple Minecraft or whatever, like this game seems to at least have the numbers early on in a way that a lot of the other games have not. and it'll be interesting to see kind of how they push forward with it. I mean, this week I'll probably finally dig into it and see what the hell is going on with Hightail, because like I said, I bought it and installed it and messed with it for like 7 minutes, and then all the kids came running out into the garage, and I was like, okay, I need to turn this off, or else it's almost bedtime. I can't have kids out here trying to play bootleg Minecraft. Meanwhile, Minecraft keeps going and making a lot of money. Unfortunately, they're part of a large company that, like, they can miss their quarterly target by, some small number of money for all the numbers they're actually still doing, and have to lay people out. Like, it's just fuck. What the fuck, man? It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. That's it for the news. Hey, emails. podcast@guard.bike is the email address. Send me an email and we'll get into it. Of course, thanks to everybody who is supporting the show, backing the show. You can find out more information about how to get an ad-free version of this very podcast over at jeff.zone. You can also get access to a bonus podcast every week, the Jeff Gerstmann Hall of Fame, all that sort of stuff. Find out more about it over at jeff.zone, and thanks to everybody who is supporting this endeavor and making this a reality that we all have to contend with, whether we like it or not. Let's see. Eric from Pasadena writes in and says, just listen to your thoughts about the ideal difficulty experience for games, and as it just so happens, I've spent the last week or two playing through games that do exactly what you described, the Batman Arkham games. Both Arkham City and Arkham Knight have a New Game Plus exclusive difficulty that turns a few knobs, but mostly makes the game harder by removing the colored combat prompts, telling you when to counter or stun or what have you, forcing you to keep your eyes peeled, go on instinct, and more importantly, be the bat. But yeah, it would be nonsense to start off playing that way. It really only works if you go into hard mode with your first run fresh in your head. Yeah, it's like I said when I was talking about difficulty, it's really hard to. I think it's really hard to ask players to play a game twice, especially back to back like that. And this is something that, I kind of expressed this last week and saw a few comments of people like, "Oh, that's so reviewer-brained content. You got to crank out content." I'm like, that's how I've played games forever. Like, you beat a game, you move on to the next thing. Like, that's how I played games as a kid. There were games I would come back to significantly later, but primarily that was because games were expensive and you could not just go out and buy 20 more of them. But yeah, man, that is just how I have always fucking played games. I'm not here to play a game over and over again and be like, I'm going to optimize this. Like, no, I've finished the thing. I know how this story ends now. I've seen the conclusion of this tale, and now I can move on and experience another one. It's not, like the games that are truly great, I'll find a reason to go back to, but the vast majority of them are not worth it and never have been. So I think that's a really weird opinion to hold. But of like going back to these games over and over again, like there are, especially these days, when there's so many more things you could be experiencing. Have you finished Super Mario Brothers Special? Maybe you could get into it. Eric from Ontario says, do you still have the guitar you won playing Jammer Lammy? I saw you pop up in a Parappa retrospective on YouTube and got curious. Yes. I do have 2 of those Fernandez branded Jammer Lammy guitars. They are... I don't think they're in this garage anymore. I think they are in my storage locker. But I have 2 of them. And they're fucking really cool. They're smaller than the typical guitar, and they have a built-in speaker. and so you put a battery in them and flip the switch, and you've got a relatively clean tone coming out of them. They were a real pain in the ass to keep in tune. For some reason, they would get knocked out of tune really, really quickly. But we used them. I was not in a band at the time, but I was helping out a friend's band, and sometimes I was would stand in for somebody if when they were out or whatever. And so I played a handful of shows with a band. And they had two guitar players and a bass player. They had two guitarists. And we took the Jammer Lammy guitars and we played some shows where they were both using the Jammer Lammy guitars. It was real dumb. And the thing we discovered is those things, even when you put new strings on them, just for whatever reason, they just fucking do not stay in tune at all. Yeah, I don't know. That was a lot of fun. Those guitars took a little bit of abuse in that summer. That summer when we were using them, those guitars took a little bit of abuse, unfortunately. But they're still in mostly working order. I think the power switch on one of them got busted loose, and so it's hard to turn it on and off. But yeah, they did not make a ton of those. Surprisingly, they did not make a ton of these Jammer Lammy guitars. I know Dan Amrick has one, guitarist himself. But yeah, Ryan from New Hampshire writes in, what do you think the best shooter of this generation is? Seems like there's been a lot fewer of them this generation for some reason. For me, it would be Resident Evil Village, with nothing else even coming close to beating it. Is Resident Evil Village a shooter? Is that I mean, not that there's not shooting in it, but is that the best way to describe that game? Probably not. But it does have, I mean, there is a lot of shooting in it. I mean, I guess you could just look at it that way and go, yeah, sure, I guess. But I think it does other things better. I don't know. I think if you're approaching that game as just a shooter and nothing else, you're selling it a little short, is what I would say. But the primary act in that game is I suppose it is shooting. So yeah, I don't know. What's the best shooter of this generation? I don't know. It's splintered, right? We used to think about that purely as first person shooter. And are we just talking about first person shooters? Are we also allowing third person shooters into this conversation? Are we focusing on multiplayer shooters? Do you think Helldivers is something that enters into this conversation? Because that is not a game I would immediately think of when we're talking about best shooters, but Helldivers certainly has a ton of shooting in it. But yeah, I don't really have a great answer to this. People seem to really like Arc Raiders right now. Will that end up being the best shooter of this generation? Doom the Dark Ages. Doom the Dark Ages is a cool fucking game. The vehicle stuff just overstays its welcome. That Doom game is really neat. It could be a little tighter. The finals, yeah, is the I mean, yeah, the finals. I don't know, no, but if you wanted to tell me that the finals was your favorite shooter of this generation, I'd be like, okay, I guess, because that came out. I mean, I think when we're talking about the generation, it's inherently a console-based concept, right? So we're talking about games that started life, after the release of the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, really. So that's the best shooter of the best last 6 years. It's Foam Stars, right? But yeah, I don't know that I have a really great answer to this question, because I think that it's probably cool that this has happened, but the shooter genre has diversified in a handful of ways. It's kind of it's sort of the thing that PUBG did to this, is by popularizing the battle royale, it both kind of created a new lane for shooters and also a desire for there to be other new lanes in shooting. It's kind of how this extraction stuff kind of came to pass, or why people are chasing it, is because they think like, oh, if we make a great one of these, it'll be the next PUBG, or whatever, right? And so you don't think of them as traditional shooters in the kind of Call of Duty, Halo Infinite mold or whatever. But they are shooters. I don't know. Is it Sulaco? I don't have a good, everyone's going to have their own criteria for what they're looking for. Competitive multiplayer. Is it still just Counter-Strike 2? When did Counter-Strike 2 actually come out? That's not technically this generation. Is it? No, 2023. Wow. Okay. God, that's way newer than... Time is weird, man. Counter-Strike 2 seems like an ancient video game somehow, but I guess that's because it's just more fucking Counter-Strike. But yeah, I don't know. Is it Valorant? I would certainly never say Valorant is the best shooter of this generation, but it is a very popular one. Is it Marvel Rivals? People seem to like that, right? It's Deadlock. That's right. The best shooter is a game that's not even out. But with Deadlock, I mean, is every character shooting in Deadlock, or are there melee characters? I don't know. Whatever. I guess I haven't played Deadlock in a pretty long time at this point. They all shoot? Okay. Because I don't think of that as a shooter. I think of that as a MOBA with shooting in it, I guess, if that makes any sense. Like everyone's going to draw their own weird lines around like what they think of as a shooter or whatever. And I think it's a dumb... All of it just kind of illustrates just how stupid a lot of the genre conversations have become. Is it X-Defiant? No? No. But yeah, I don't, it's yeah, Combat Master. That's a hell of a game. I was playing some Combat Master pretty recently. That game is still nonsense. You should still install Combat Master on Steam, because everyone else playing it is playing on a phone and they can't aim for shit. And it is the closest thing you will get to that Quake 3 Dreamcast experience of you have a mouse, a keyboard, and a broadband adapter, and they're on dial-up with a controller, and you are just murdering everyone, and it feels great. You should install Combat Master and murder everyone. Yeah, I think that this is a surprisingly tough question to answer, because I think shooters have diffused quite a bit into a lot of different subcategories and subgenres. And of course, a lot of games that you don't think of as shooters have shooting in them. And so if you wanted to have that Resident Evil conversation, I guess you can kind of have that now. I would probably say it's Modern Warfare 2. For me, that was a hell of a video game. But is that the best? That's the best like multiplayer one. Probably. That's my favorite anyway. It's maybe not the best, but it's my favorite multiplayer shooter of the generation, I suppose. But is that even this generation? I mean, I guess like that was a PS4 game. I mean, I guess all the Call of Duty games are still PS4 games, technically. But if we're talking about this generation specifically, yeah, that Modern Warfare 2 reboot. That was 2022. Man, fucking brains are weird, dude. But yeah, Modern Warfare 2 of 2022 is like probably the one I played the most this generation. So I might say that one, But yeah, Jimothy from Georgia writes in and says, with the closing of all these meta studios recently, I don't know if you've ever looked at it, but if I had to guess, VR Chat might be one of the few VR games that has had quantifiable growth in VR. The Steam charts show a steady month-by-month growth, and from personal experience and talking with others, from what I understand, about half of the usual VR Chat users are on Android, aka Quest headsets, and a small amount on phones, meaning you could probably add a lot onto what you just see from Steam. Well, I don't think VR Chat is the savior of VR. It has actually shifted to the Roblox model of multiple games and activities in the world, where you can play a variety of things with people and pay money to the creators to support them, making me think that it's not going to leave anytime soon. Steam Frame definitely won't bring a second revival of VR, but it's an interesting spot for VR Chat, with Meta looking like it's phasing out VR gently, while VR Chat has by far most users using Meta products. I've been logging into VR Chat on and off for 8 years now, and when me and the crew I hang with don't know what to do, we'll often put on some videos of you and just chill. Yeah. VR Chat is great. And the thing I like about VR Chat is that it is lawless in a lot of ways. At least it was the last time I looked at it, which granted has been a bit. But yeah, VR Chat just seemed like a great space for people to just fucking hang out, and in some cases like experiment with their identity, and like people that are looking for a place to kind of safely do that. VR Chat seemed like it was actually pretty good for folks in that regard as well, and I think that there's some really kinky shit happening inside of VR Chat as well, which is all right, sure. And it's interesting to hear that they've kind of gone in, because they had different rooms and different experiences already, but they weren't always the most detailed or developed things. So if they're getting more and more into that Roblox style of like multiple games and kind of whatever, I think that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I've always been a like very interested in VR Chat, but it's not something that I have spent a ton of time with. I had a handful of friends that do it from time to time, and you know, was in there with them for a bit, but like kind of, you know, don't really I'm not even sure where my VR headset is at the moment. so you know, on a similar note, Roberto writes in and says, within the last month you've discussed Roblox, and I think you've also mentioned that your kids have played it as well. They have not. It has not come up. As a fellow parent who games, have you discussed the dangers of Roblox with your kids? What did that conversation look like? I know your kids are quite young, so I don't know if they'd be able to fully grasp your perspective on the concerns. No, they have not played Roblox. My daughter said the word Roblox out loud the other day, and it like caused a certain twinge. I could feel it creeping up my spine of just like, shit, fuck. Like she's hearing about it at school, right? But she's not interested in it. She's never asked me anything about like playing Roblox or anything like that. Like she's playing Astrobot, and she's playing Kirby Air Riders. Like she's playing stuff on the Switch too. She wants me to reinstall Animal Crossing for her, so that she can I'll probably have her start a new. She mostly played it on 3DS, but and has not seen the Switch 2 Animal Crossing. And so I'm tempted to say, like, hey, you don't want to play that one because it fucking sucks. It's the worst Animal Crossing. But they did put out that update, and I do want to look at that update. So, yeah, I don't know. Like she's interested in that, and she's played a little bit of Minecraft, but it's a little too. She gets into Minecraft creative mode, and she managed to build a big pen and fill it full of axolotls, and she was very excited about that. And she was very excited about that, but she kind of drifted away from it back to Kirby and some of the other stuff that's installed on a Switch too. And she'll come up and ask me, "Can I play a video game on the Nintendo Switch too?" Yes, you can. Okay. And she was playing Mario Kart World the other day, and she was very excited that you could be a snowman. And then did not have much fun actually playing the video game. But yeah, that's kind of the stuff that she's playing. Anyway, I'm currently working with my son, 10 years old, to find ways to responsibly engage with Roblox. He played it when he was around 6 before we as parents understood what it was, and it didn't go well. He was quite addicted to the point where it affected his daily routine, and he also told us he encountered a room in which someone built Donkey Kong with a large penis. From that point, we removed his access to it, and to this day, it has always been a hard no. He's older now. We've had talks about the sexual content, dark patterns in spending, and addiction. The problem is Roblox is a massively important social component for kids his age, and he's recently been taking a lot of flack at school for not playing it, and that has affected him as well. He's been approaching us about playing it again, demonstrating maturity and awareness of the game and its problems, and proposing ways to avoid danger. I'm proud of him for his maturing approach, and recently my wife and I have been discussing allowing him to play again, if only so he can fit in better with his peers. We also don't want him to begin to resent us for outright denial. From our perspective, we understand that eventually he'll become savvy enough to play the game without us knowing, and we'd rather not have him feel the need to hide anything. I think parenting in a general sense comes down to knowing your kids and knowing what they can handle. Can they handle a Roblox experience with Donkey Kong with a gigantic prick? That's probably a bad one. You probably don't allow that. But Roblox has updated its parental controls quite a bit since the last time. If you're talking about 4 years, there are significant differences to the parental controls inside of Roblox that include restrictions on who you can chat with and how you can chat. And so my recommendation, and I'm not like an expert on those, my recommendation on that would be to sign up for Crossplay, which is Patrick Klepek's newsletter, increasingly devoted to this topic. And you can go to crossplay.news for more of that. He has been in the Roblox parental controls mine for a number of years now, and he's extremely well versed in that stuff from what I can tell. And I am not. So the other thing I would say is you feel like it feels like you have a good handle on what Roblox is, right? It's kind of lawless. The dark patterns around things, blind boxes, and this is stuff that's creeping its way into Fortnite too, by the way. So, Fortnite was once thought of as a very safe thing, and now, or a safer thing, and now they are heading down a similar road. So keep that in mind as well. My advice would be to play this stuff for yourself and to play this stuff with your son to get a good handle on what it is he's doing, and to be able to talk about it with him and be able to show him that it's something that he can bring to you. It's something that you can discuss and have like regular conversations about. That's sort of the important thing. And so, yeah, I don't know. Like, ultimately, I don't know what I will do about Roblox, except it will probably be something like that. It will probably be something like, hey, you know, I'm going to have to get involved. I've talked to other parents who have kids that have played a ton of Roblox, and it's been similar. Like, the best outcomes that I've heard have been from parents, especially parents who work in video games, or work in and around video games. It has been a lot of like, I have to play it with him. I have to play a lot of it. Like, I'm not there all the time, but I've seen enough of it for myself to where I can know that he knows what's appropriate and what's not, and that, you know, he knows that we can always talk about this stuff and all of that. And he knows that these games are, in a lot of cases, fucking scams. And so I think that stuff's kind of tricky. You know, it is the town square for kids under a certain, you know, like there is that sort of social pressure when it comes to, if it's not Roblox, it's Fortnite. Like, Fortnite is another big one. You know, kids of a certain age are getting together on Fortnite and playing stuff, and so, you know, it just kind of depends on where you're at with that stuff, and which game your kids and their friend group are into. Because it's probably, if it's not one, it's probably going to be the other. And yeah, I'm with you in a sense that, like, yeah, I don't want to like fully block my kids from this because every other one of their friends is engaging in it, and find, you know, like trying to find ways to do it responsibly. And, you know, my struggle has really been around the, you know, you talk about like addiction and you know, kids that are playing so many games that it's disrupting their routine. That's my son is at that point right now with Astrobot and everything. And especially now that we're getting close to the end of Astrobot, he's saying, like, can you type in a new game for kids? And I'm out. I don't know what else to find for him right now. You know, he's played a lot of the Paw Patrol shit, and all those games are fucking miserable. You know, he's playing Astrobot. We finally started having conversations about other video games within the confines and the structure of Astrobot, because there are so many characters from other games in there. And so that, it was actually like a pretty amazing moment the other day, because one of the last robots we have found, and it's one of the kind of late game robots, or is from Rez. And we were trying to finish the level to get the Rez guy, and he was like, "We gotta get him. He looks so cool. He looks like the coolest one." And I'm like, "He is the coolest one. It's from probably the coolest game." And my son uttered the word Rez out loud for the first time, and I was like, "Huh, this is pretty fucking cool." And, you know, and I was showing him videos of Vib Ribbon, because there's a Vibri robot in there, and he has no interest. He had very little interest in Vib Ribbon. Even as I tried to go fun, like, it just didn't. It was not sinking in. My daughter maybe would be a Vibri fan. But he wanted to see Ape Escape. He really wanted to see Ape Escape, and I was like, "Fucking A, yeah, man, Ape Escape's great." And then we downloaded, because, you know, Ape Escape 1 is on the PlayStation 5. And so we downloaded Ape Escape and started playing Ape Escape, and the controls are just fucked. Like, the controls in Ape Escape are amazing for what that game is and what they're trying to do, especially at a time when maybe it's the first time you're handling a dual analog controller, because that was the big draw of that game. but you use the face buttons to change tools, use the shoulder buttons to jump, use the right stick to point in direction to aim your tools, whether it's the net or the stun club or whatever. And then there's no camera control. You hit like L1 to bring the camera behind your back. And when you're underwater, you have to click in the right stick to shoot nets. And he still hasn't really figured out the idea of clicking in the sticks and why you would ever do that and how that works and all that other stuff. And so he played a little bit of it and was just like, I can't, it's just like, this is fucked. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right. This does not control super well at all. And so that did not last long. And it kind of bummed me out. I was like, man, yeah, I guess this game does not control super well. All these years later, it is not aged well, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. So that was not the answer, but I don't know what's next for him. Maybe I need to hook because the Switch is not currently connected to the television, because I can set up a scenario now where my daughter is playing games on the Switch too, and he's playing games on the PlayStation, and everyone is quiet and there's no fighting. And I'm like, yes, this is great. This is great. Now laundry can happen, and I can come out in the garage and fuck around with some stuff. Like things can get done. But I do think that, probably a decent game for him at this point would probably be like maybe that Kirby re-release, the platformer that was re-released on Switch. My daughter played a little bit of that recently and had a good time with it, and maybe that would be something that they could both get into. She's playing the Pokemon puzzle game that came out, the free-to-play thing. She's been playing a lot of that lately and turning yarn into Pikachus. And then people say, I want your Pikachu. And then she's like, I want to keep my Pikachu. I'm not going to give it to this person. I'm like, hey, you keep that Pikachu. This can is not oriented properly for me to drink. So I don't know. Maybe there's some first party Nintendo thing that my son would be into next. But I'm not immediately sure what that game is. Tempted to say like, here, play some Mario 64, but I think a lot of it's going to come down to fucked up camera controls in games of that era, being a problem. So that might not be the best. But yeah. A couple of people wrote in to share. There was a story that went around saying that the Atari Hotel is not going to happen in Las Vegas, which we talked about the Atari Hotel plans as they are, being a location in Phoenix, and that's the only one they're talking about right now. But I guess when they did initially announce the plan to do the Atari Hotel, they talked about multiple locations, and so some Las Vegas-based news source wrote a thing saying, oh, the Atari Hotel's not happening. And people were like, oh, look at this. And I was like, yeah, it was never going to, it's never going to. But also, all of their stuff is focused on Phoenix right now anyway. And they're still trying to raise investor funds to make a hotel. And it's not even Atari. They license the name out. And so it's a whole... I feel like if I were Atari, I would be increasingly disgusted and angry at the deals that like this that were made some time ago still existing, because I think it makes Atari look bad, and Atari is doing much better stuff now than they were then. But I suppose they probably needed the money from those deals to probably do much of anything, so maybe they just look at it and go like, well, yeah, we needed it, we needed to do it, we needed this money, couldn't buy the Intellivision stuff unless we had this money. This is another, kids in games thing here. Britton from Kansas City This is kind of a long one, but I'll try to size it down. This last holiday season, my wife and I went to her home state of Georgia to visit her parents for Christmas. Our nephew stayed over a couple of nights while we were there, and I finally understand more about how you're unsure of what the future of gaming will be because of this new generation of gamers. He's 13 years old. His favorite games are Fortnite and Roblox, and he also plays quite a bit of Mario Kart and whatever the most recent football club game is. I only see him maybe once a year, if even that, so when I see him, I try to make a good connection and be a good uncle. I was talking to him about video games and how much I love them, and when I told him about how I was bummed I didn't finish as many games this past year as I normally do, he seemed confused by it. He asked, "What do you mean by finishing a game?" Chad, are we cooked? I think we're cooked. And I was amazed that he seemed to have no concept of playing a game solo or playing a story-driven game. Other game conversations would be just him asking me what games I'm best at or what games I'm so much better at than other people. I tried to explain that while it's great to win a match or a race, that I just like to play and have fun. I had been hoping to try to get him into some Final Fantasy or another JRPG to play, but he saw me playing Final Fantasy Tactics and says it wasn't a super fast-paced multiplayer thing. He was completely uninterested. I saw him playing some Fortnite on his own without his friends online too, and it wasn't even Battle Royale. It was always a bunch of weird user-made stuff, so I imagine that's the sort of stuff he's used to on Roblox as well. Do you think there's any way to get kids like this interested in story-driven games, or are they just forever tainted by all the free-to-play games? I didn't want to type all that out without having a question along with it. My main point is that I get it now, and I don't know why I can't stop thinking about it. Also, I'm trying to figure out a way to get him off the Roblox without freaking his mom out about why I think the game is gross and predatory. Yeah. I have had conversations with parents about Roblox and how predatory and nasty it is. And they've been like, I had no idea, but it did not lead to any change in any behavior at all. So I would probably just give it as more of a heads up. It doesn't need to be your kid needs to stop playing Roblox right now. It's more like hey, you need to be aware of what Roblox really is so that you can be ready for these sorts of scenarios should they come up. But your question, do I think there's any way to get kids like this interested in story-driven games? No, I don't. I don't think there's a way to coerce children into getting into different video games. Do I think that, some kids will eventually grow out of this phase and maybe still be interested in video games, and that might lead to them playing a wider array of games? Maybe. But video games are also exceptionally fucking expensive. I don't know if you noticed, but the non-free-to-play games are fucked. Sometime this year, the Switch 2 will probably go up in price. Consoles are expensive. And so the environment for free-to-play games, phone games, whatever you want to call them, it continues to flourish because traditional gaming is only getting more and more expensive. And so that's going to create and exacerbate more of this problem, right? Where, if your parents aren't going to go buy you a console so you can play the expensive video games, then you're going to play the free ones. And what are the free ones? It's Roblox. It's Fortnite. This is going to be your entire experience with games is going to be games like this. You're going to play them with your friends. And so, and your friends are going to guilt you into like, oh, you still look like the fucking default guy, you piece of shit. I bought Goku. You're such garbage. Like whatever, right? And so, yeah, I don't know. People used to like to say, oh, dude, streamers play so many of these other games and kids watch these streamers and that's what makes them want to play and buy these other games. But I don't even really think that. I can't imagine that that's a massive draw the way it used to be, even a few years ago, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think it's not a great situation for that style of games. But I do think there's a possibility that some kids grow tired of that shit and they eventually want something else. you know, and if they still care about video games, then maybe they get engaged in some of the other single player stuff and some other types of games and whatever else. A lot of people in chat saying, go get him a Mister, go get him an Amber Nick with a bunch of ROMs on it and all of that. I don't know, man. I don't know. Mason in chat says, Mr. Beast plays Fortnite and that is who kids watch. Does Mr. Beast play video games? I thought he just like tortured homeless people. I thought he was just like beating people up on the streets and giving them millions of dollars or something. Does he do games? That's weird. I don't know. Yeah. The kind of weird, the weird thing about the whole, like, some people saying like, oh, go get a bunch of ROMs, go get a bunch of this. Like, maybe, because if you think about it, like it was just a generation ago, if not two, that kids grew up playing Flash games because they were free, right? And so you had kids growing up on Newgrounds and all of that other crazy shit, which is problematic in different ways, I suppose. Because those were the free games, you know, and the ability to monetize those games was reduced greatly by comparison to where we're at today. I mean, this is like weapons grade fucking monetization strategies that we're dealing with now compared to, you know, what it used to be. Yeah, you're going to go to Congregate, sign up for an account so you can get achievements on Congregate. That's what I did. And what the fuck was I didn't even like that shit. So I don't know. You know, I think multiplayer gaming is really powerful and really fucking crazy and awesome. And you know, but obviously there's a downside to that, you know, like it comes at the expense of this other stuff. Like you start to see why, you know, you had people at EA saying for a long time there, like, story-driven games, the single-player game, like, we don't think people want it. Like, I think that's something that was not true then, but there was a kernel of truth to it, and I think that is something that is growing. There is a growing sentiment around that. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing on its face, because there's nothing wrong with the nature of like, hey man, we're having a cool social experience. Like me and my friends are getting together and doing this thing online. Like that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I used to hang out in a fucking IRC channel with dirtbags. I used to hang out with like 40-plus-year-old divorcees on Quantum Link on the Commodore 64. I used to pay $6 an hour to play bingo online with weird old people, and I could hold my own in the chat because it was all text chat and you could just do it. So no one knew that I was like 11 or 12. But it was social and it was fun. You know, you were talking to other real people. It was fascinating. And that's, you know, like that's still fun. That's still good. There's nothing wrong with kids socializing. Even if it's inside of a video game, it's still something, man. Like, where are they going to go? All the fucking malls are shutting down. The fucking 7-Eleven is broadcasting fucking high-pitched frequencies to keep kids from hanging out in front of the fucking store. Where do kids go? They can't fucking go anywhere. Society hates kids. So of course they're going to fucking stay home and play fucking Fortnite. You know? It's terrible. Like, it's a fucking awful situation, but like, you see how this happens. You see why we've ended up down this fucking disgusting path. And yeah, but I don't think it's like something that is super conducive to the ongoing popularity of story-driven games. And I do think that you could look at this, and I don't think, you know, like, you total all of this up, where does it lead you? Games are just, you know, traditional video games. When I say games, traditional video games, like the ones we often talk about here on this show, and the ones that people ask me the most questions about, are expensive, and they're only getting more expensive. And so if you don't have a parent who's already into that shit, if you're just a kid and you just, like your parents got a phone and whatever else, and you don't really have a window into traditional video games, then yeah, you're going to hear about some stuff at school and you're going to be like, oh, I don't know, man. Yeah, this is, and that's what video games are, right? It's Roblox. It's you get on your mom's phone and you do this stuff, and eventually your mom goes, this sucks, and buys you your own phone, which you are too young to have your own phone, but your mom wants her phone back. And so she's like, well, fuck it. Here, play Roblox on this. Fuck shit. Or maybe they go, oh, we'll buy a Switch, we'll buy a, no one's going to buy a PlayStation 5 just to play Roblox on, are they? You can. And I'm sure Roblox does quite well on those platforms, but it's probably a situation where a parent is like, I'm over here playing Ghost of Yotei, the thinking man's video game. And then, the kids are just playing Roblox on it. Or yeah, you're getting your kid a cheap Android tablet and going, here, leave me alone. And then they're playing a bunch of Roblox on it. And you get what you give, man. I don't know. I don't think there's a great, I don't think there's a great solution to this right now. And I don't know where it all leads. I don't think it's necessarily the death of any one type of game or whatever, but you do have a demographic that is going to age out of this one way or the other over the next 40 years or whatever, when we all die. And will there be anyone left who gives a shit about that type of game? I don't know. When death comes for us, will Roblox be all that remains? It's entirely possible. Something to think about on this cheery Tuesday morning. Similarly, Mike from Long Island writes in and asks, is there any new magic in gaming? As someone around my age, I've been wondering if you have been missing the magic of gaming too. I've been following the recent layoffs at the VR studios of Meta as they shift towards whatever shiny new thing Mark Zuckerberg thinks will help him conquer the world. Blah, 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 blah. This is a long email. I'm going to shorten it up a little bit. As someone who's been a gaming enthusiast since the mid-'80s, it's a real fucking bummer. Such a big part of the excitement of gaming throughout the decades has been watching as technology and art do an elaborate dance in which each element pushes the other forward in new and exciting ways. And he's talking about the technology that is pushed forward over the last 30 years and so on. Star Fox and Doom and all of that. Over the past 30 years, games have primarily been making incremental upgrades with regards to visuals, sound, and design. Don't get me wrong, the audio-visual differences between games on the original PlayStation and those on the PS5 Pro are astounding, but many of those differences feel much more incremental than the leaps that took place between games and hardware in the 80s and mid-90s. Sure. There are many incredible games these days. What you said previously about how the general public feels about VR gaming seems spot on, but it also feels like one of the few branches of gaming that's still trying things that are relatively exciting and new. Without any interesting new hardware gimmicks, the prospect of simply a more powerful PS6 or a Switch 3 in the future seems comparatively uninteresting and almost redundant at a certain point. Yeah. While VR and AR may never truly take off until the tech gets light, comfortable, reliable, and cheap enough for more of a mass market, do you imagine the major manufacturers will ever try anything as wild as Kinect or the Wii ever again? Don't get me wrong, traditional gaming is still amazing, but the part of me that grew up with so many advancements in gaming throughout the years can't help but get excited for future innovations that go beyond higher frame rates and ray tracing. Has gaming ultimately settled into its ultimate format, or is there still a possibility for different experiences to exist outside of niche enthusiast spaces? So yeah, there's a lot there to pick apart. He's kind of saying that like VR didn't really take off, but at least it was something crazy and new. The thing I would say as a counter when you talk about VR and as an alternative, as a branch of gaming that is trying things that are relatively exciting and new, everyone just wants to make Roblox in VR. like there are There are people out there that still think that they can be the ones to, and Roblox is, I think can you play actual Roblox in a VR headset? I don't know if it's actually in VR or not, but like, you know, like there is still like that. So, you know, I think that ultimately VR will settle in a similar direction, but Crafty NYC says, what are the best VR games? I don't know. It's a depressing list because it's a list of games that came out like 8 years ago, mostly. Except for maybe like, unless like Gorilla Tag is really good. I actually don't know. But it's probably Beat Saber. I don't even especially like Beat Saber. I don't think Beat Saber is like my favorite one of those, but the popularity of Beat Saber sort of does speak for itself. Super Hot VR is pretty neat. There are a few shooters. I think Space Pirate Trainer Simulator, whatever the fuck it's called, was a really good standing kind of shooter. Half-Life Alyx does some really interesting things. You know, Tetris Effect and Lumines do their thing, and that's really transcendent for a fairly standard puzzle game experience when you break it down. But yeah, I don't know. You know, there's stuff, but it's a lot of older stuff. And then people made newer versions of those games and ripped off those games to make new stuff, and you're like, okay. Yeah, whatever. So, you know, is there any new magic in gaming? I'm going to say right now is maybe the worst time to ask that question because there's so much. There's the space is being depressed in ways because of all the economy stuff, and the price on everything is a disaster, and there's just a lot of stuff like that is, you know, like hampering just straight up raw technological development, right? I think the magic in gaming comes from the games that are being made ultimately, but if you're purely looking for something that like what's the next new thing in tech, I think the entire tech industry is looking for that. They thought it was AI, and now increasingly they're starting to go like, well, maybe not so much. If you fucking morons would use it, then it would be good, but you know, or whatever, right? But we haven't even really started to see AI infect like modern video games yet, right? Like we still haven't seen like a developer with a track record say, okay, like all of our side quests are now wholly written by AI, and that means they're going to be unique to you and you'll have a different experience, you know, like whatever hand wavy shit they do to try to make that sound like a good thing. But like ultimately, like whatever, man, you could procedurally generate. I mean, and they did that, right? Like Skyrim will procedurally generate quests for you forever. It's very radiant that way. But you know, it would be very easy to see a scenario where for the next Elder Scrolls, they go, oh, well, Radiant 2.0 is actually just an LLM that is going to, you know, generate bullshit, and it will speak it all to you, and that way we don't have, you know, it's not just iterations on the same 8 quest types, because all the Radiant quests sucked. And I got bad news for you. The ones generated by an LLM will probably suck as well. But also, for what it's worth, that's not me actually saying that I think that the next Elder Scrolls will have a heavy AI component, because I think they will be too scared to fuck up an Elder Scrolls game to do it. But that's what I'm talking about. Like, we still haven't seen something like that ship in a mainstream game, where they've gone like, oh, all of our quests are written by fucking AI, right? Presumably, someone will eventually take the plunge on that and try it out in a grander way. You've seen a few small things that have tried to ship and do it like, oh well, our shit, but you look at it and you're like, this is not good. Like Ubisoft has tried to promote their AI shit, and who knows, man, maybe this Far Cry game comes out and maybe it just generates quests forever, right? That doesn't sound like it solves the problem we have with open world gaming, right? What if you could have fucking garbage ass, the quests that kind of have to be meaningless because of the very nature of them, unless you're going to make a game where you say, AI, tell me a story, and then suddenly you're like, okay, well, in the confines of you being trapped on an island, here's the story. This time they're white supremacists. Wait. Turns out our programming won't let us get political, so it's bad guys. What do they want? To kill good people. Well, we've got to stop them. Exactly. So yeah, I don't know. Like, someone I think will eventually at least want to, like, I'm sure people want to do that right now. And we've seen small scale experiments from people along those lines. But I imagine someone eventually just fucking shrugs and says, fuck it, we're doing it. And they go and they plug their entire quest system into an LLM. Which again, like, I don't, if they plugged it into if we were in the AI era that was generating those shitty fucking fake Seinfeld episodes, and all of the quests were of that fucked up quality, like, that to me sounds like that's the type of avant-garde disaster that I think would be at least interesting to look at. But whatever. I think, when we talk about technological advances in gaming and whatever else, like, it's a really weird, it's a hard conversation to have. The thing I'll say is that there are technologies out there that are too expensive to put into your home that actually will get cheaper over time. Display technologies, screen technologies, like, there's stuff. Like, will any one of those lead to a complete revolution in games and game design? It's going to take really intelligent game developers to come together and coalesce around that type of technology to do it. Nintendo took a real weird shot with the Virtual Boy, right? And this is not a perfect analogy, but the Virtual Boy was them trying to fucking come up with something else. And whether it's cutting edge or not cutting edge, like, I don't think it was particularly cutting edge at the time when you break down what that thing really was, but they were never really truly behind it, and it's good that they weren't, because I don't think they would have necessarily, I don't think anything would have helped that thing take off. The tech was just not where it was. But if that thing had been better, lighter, easier to deal with, something that you could look at, like, we've seen, like, the 3DS is a really interesting example, right? You can do 3D without glasses. That's crazy. The future is now. It was insane. And then you realize, like, oh, this tech has kind of existed in different ways for a good long time. It's just never really been viable to put into any kind of consumer device. And then I remembered, like, oh, yeah, I guess I saw, like, glasses-free 3D TVs at CES in, like, the 90s. And it was crazy. It's like, you're like, look at this fish tank. It's like, it's really fucking there. And you're like, yes, join the NEC Fish Club today, Mac. But, like, those types of concepts are always out there. You got people that want to project things onto clear glass, and they're thinking about it in terms like, oh, well, if you're drawing spreadsheets or whatever, just draw on the window of your office and it's going to be a screen and it can project and do it. there's a lot of shit like that you look at and go like, well, what if that was just repurposed? What if that could be high refresh rate enough to run games on? And what if you could do interesting things on fucking, like those sorts of things? Like, I don't think that's not like a killer idea, but start to go down that road and think about it and go like, yeah, what if there was a purpose-built device that doesn't plug into a TV? What if it's this, what if there could be this other thing? That's the sort of stuff that I look at and go like, someone's going to try something again. Like, the handheld market has changed and largely disappeared, but like there's room for something. And maybe it gets written off like a toy. Maybe it's just like the next iteration of the Nex or whatever, where it's like, oh, we got this hologram thing that'll beam onto your screen, beam onto your wall and whatever, like maybe there's something like that where you go, it's for kids. Like it can't run good modern games, but it can do this. I think there's just the potential for there to be, and there are people out there working on a wide variety of weird tech, right? And so if you were a hardware manufacturer, one of the big three, and you're trying to figure out what the fuck is next, because all of them know what you're saying, where you say like, hey, a more powerful PS6 or a Switch 3 seems completely uninteresting and almost redundant at a certain point. Like, yeah. Like, we're talking about PSSR. We're talking about upscaling technology. Like, everyone's doubling down on, like, fucking, hey, can we get more out of less? Can we upscale this to 4K? Can we render this at a lower resolution and blow it up after the fact? Like, what can we do to get more out of what we got and go in that direction? And so, they all know that. But that's not super exciting. It's exciting if you're a developer because you're like, okay, well, good, I can get a little bit more performance out of this stuff that, than I would be able to otherwise. And so, it'll be a little bit easier for us to make these games and you see a little bit more runway for that type of stuff. But like, I don't know. I do think that I do tend to agree with this specific kind of reading about what the new magic is, but personally, for me, the new magic has always been software side. And I look at the last few years when we talk about, oh, the PlayStation 5 is not that interesting, and this and the Switch does, it's like it's just whatever. Like, I think there have been some great video games that have come out in that time frame that are fucking awesome, and so I look at that sort of stuff, but that's speaking to you're speaking to an audience that is already bought in on that stuff at that point. It's not something flashy and new that pulls new people into games and pulls gaming in a new direction or whatever, right? But those are the types of big swings that only come along once every 15 years or something. I don't know. Like, what do you like, that's the Wii, right? That's Nintendo going like, oh shit, man. Like, we're not going to win some chip race. Like, yeah, we could go invest in the highest quality technology in the world. It's not going to make Mario any better in the ways that matter. So why would we do that? And so you see them take these chances that they take over the years with the Wii, with the Wii U, with the Switch. You see the progression as to in the directions that they move in, right? But yeah, I think in some ways it's kind of an unfair question, and also like I think that there's a lot of magic in gaming, and a lot of it is coming from smaller studios and smaller teams that just have like crazier ideas, and they don't have to answer to shareholders, and they're just able to kind of execute on this stuff. And some of it's a mess, but some of it's a very interesting mess, and I think that's exciting. God, I don't know. Everyone thought to write in about Roblox this week. Tim writes in and says, watching the news at a client's house, which is like, I appreciate the ambiguity there. Like, what do you do that you're watching the news at a client? Anyway, watching the news at a client's house, and they did a story on the civil suit happening in Washington State about a 12-year-old girl that was predated over Roblox. The attorney over the case also compared it to a defective car that should be recalled. You called it, as I think a lot of people did, but it's weird to hear it reported on such a gen pop level. Yeah, I mean, more states are coming for Roblox. And Roblox has tried to adjust their parental control stuff. They have tried to expand that stuff recently in ways that don't seem like they actually solve the problem. But that's the thing. You've got smart kids. You've got kids that are smarter than their parents. You've got kids who can outsmart their parents, and they can bypass whatever checks Roblox comes up with. The same way I had access to copious amounts of pornography at a young age. Like you just fucking, especially once the internet enters into it. Yeah, what are you gonna do? Oh, let me put a lock on the router to keep the kids from viewing the websites I don't want them to look at. How long is that going to last? The kids got more time and more incentive than you do. For all of this stuff. God, everyone really did. I don't know what the fuck is in the fucking water, man. Okay. Anthony in Melbourne writes in, last year I achieved a well overdue goal of releasing my own video game. Recalling fond memories of playing Arkanoid 2 on my Apple II GS, I made a clone of that game. I included power-ups, 36 levels, my own boss fight, and a level editor. While it didn't set the world on fire, it was nice to have my own thing. I showed it to my 8-year-old nephew, a big Roblox fan, whose feedback was that I should add a cash shop. Back when I was a kid, it seems like video game development was about making cool shit and getting paid in reasonably equal measures. However, as the video game industry became more successful, it seems that getting paid started to overshadow making something cool, at least with the big players in the space. Do you think there will be a backlash against things like cash shops eventually? Will these kids age out of it and seek out games that more resemble what we would consider to be traditional experiences? Or are we on a runaway train to God knows where? Yeah. Well, yeah. As I said with the earlier question about Roblox, I don't know that I have the answer to this. Will there be a backlash against cash shops? If that's the only thing you've ever known, why would you backlash against it? It's generational, right? And like there's a real, like, not to get all back in my day, but back in my day, selling out was the worst thing you could do. People in my area were, there are people that are from the Bay that still fucking hate Green Day for signing a major label deal, I'm sure. When Green Day signed a major label deal, people were like, man, fuck those guys. Like, people were pissed. And now all you see are streamers and like everyone, like streamers that are just talking about all the money and deals they're doing, and everyone's trying to get the bag and like all of that shit, right? And that's just become totally acceptable and absolutely normal, and everyone just assumes that everyone or they just never think about it. I was gonna say everyone assumes that everyone is always on the take, and that the next grift is right around the corner, and everyone's got to hustle, and hustle culture is this and that, and and whatever. And I don't think people interrogate that enough. That like hustle culture leads to a lot of people becoming incredibly untrustworthy about what they say when they are being influencers and so on, and that their only responsibility is to getting paid and not to their audience and not to art, I guess, if you want to try to get a little more higher minded about it. Anyway, I don't know. You should add a cash shop. In conclusion, you should do that. But like, I don't know. You want to say that that's just like late stage capitalism, and there's just a real emptiness to the whole thing, and a real lack of any kind of interrogation of any of this stuff. Like, yeah, man, it's yep. I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Will they age out of it and seek traditional entertainment? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think there's a great answer to that question. I as time goes on, I lean more towards no, they're not going to, or rather, they will not age into traditional video games. You will have people that age out of Roblox and all of that bullshit, but it doesn't mean that they're going to go like, now I can afford the good video games. Like, no, they just don't have any interest in those things, and they will continue to not have interest in those things. Especially as those things just get more and more expensive. You know, this generation of having consoles go up in price instead of down is like incredibly disruptive to, you know, to generations of children getting interested in traditional video games. Like it's pricing people out of it completely, you know, because that used to be the thing. It was like, okay, well, now this is cheap enough that we can get one, or like, hey, this is cheap enough that you know, the next one has come out and we can hand down the old console to a brother or sister, and that's how they're going to get into it. Or, you know, there's just a lot of stuff like that you just go like, you know, like those things just seem like they've been disrupted by a lot of things, you know, not just what's out there, or are they aging out of it, or whatever, but like, you know, I don't know, it's just crazy stuff, man. I don't really have a good answer to it. Joe from New York writes in and says, I totally missed this bit of news back in December. It seems that Aspyr responded to the negative feedback the Deus Ex remaster got by delaying the release and refunding all pre-orders. It seems weird to refund pre-orders if they're just delaying it. What are the chances this remaster never comes out? I was actually kind of looking forward to it. So when you refund pre-orders, yeah, it's a very rare thing, right? Like people don't want to refund your pre-order. They want to keep the money. They want to keep the guaranteed pre-orders and what have you. I do think PlayStation has rules around this, because I think those rules got triggered for some of those rules got triggered around Cyberpunk. But I guess that wasn't for pre-orders. That was because of the. Anyway, there are rules around that stuff in terms of, like, you know, when you start your pre-orders, you kind of have a release date in mind. You kind of have a, you know, and if you push too far out of that window, I believe there are rules in place at the platform level where they go, okay, you know, if you're pushing this that far off, then you need to then you need to actually refund your pre-orders. It's not necessarily a sign that the thing will never happen, but it maybe is a sign that it got pushed quite a bit off of the initial release date, because delays happen without pre-orders getting refunded. But maybe this is a very extreme delay, or a delay to an indefinite date. I don't know what they ended up doing there, but yeah, it was not pre-orders on the, it was refunds on the Cyberpunk stuff. But there have been cases. I'm trying to think. There have been other cases where pre-orders had to get refunded. And as such, you know, that's why games kind of start their pre-order campaign usually alongside the announcement of their release date or release window at a minimum, right? Where, like, okay, we're going to start taking pre-orders for this game, and it's definitely out on this date. Like, yeah, you can't pre-order GTA 6 anywhere, right? I mean, I'm sure you could probably walk into a GameStop and those scumbags would happily take $20 or whatever. Because I think they'll take speculative, fucking walk in there and be like, yeah, I want to, can I pre-order Metal Gear Solid 6? They're like, sure. No, they're not quite that bad. Let's see here. Maybe we can find one more email here. Andrew writes in and says Donut County is great for the kids. That's, yeah, maybe that is what I will install for my son to try playing. It's Katamari-like in its own weird way. Donut County has come up a couple of times as like a good kids game. That's probably a decent option, as good an option as any. People suggesting Untitled Goose Game. The kids had a hell of a time getting anywhere in Untitled Goose Game. They had fun, like, you know, stealing the dude's shoe and running away and some of that stuff, but like the game gets a little too abstract for its own good in terms of some of the solutions and what you actually need to do to proceed and how it conveys that information to you. That was what I found, is that it was not great at conveying what you need to do. And also at a time when my son is not reading, because he's 4 and he's not reading much yet. He's starting to pick up more and more. Like it's, yeah, having a list of objectives in a game is not gonna work. But yeah. Is Hitman a kid's game? Mike in Vienna writes in. When my son was 5, we watched you play Goat Simulator live on stream. Afterwards, he insisted on buying it, and I can confirm it was a good way to introduce him to 3D games. Anyway, fast forward a few years, I recently caught him playing Hitman on my PS5. At first, I felt like it was inappropriate and was going to turn it off, but then I saw how much he enjoyed fucking around, and it reminded me of the joy he felt playing Goat Simulator. He normally shies away from violent games because he says they make him feel bad, but he doesn't seem to have the same reaction when Agent 47 murks people. Mostly he just cackles. You know, whether that's a good or a bad thing, I think is up to interpretation, but sure. I always tell him that if a game makes him sad or angry, he should just play something else, but in this case, he was having a great time exploring the game's clockwork mechanics, so I ended up letting him play. What are your thoughts on appropriate ages? Do you follow age ratings with your kids, or do you go on a case-by-case basis? I go, yeah. I mean, Hitman is like a slapstick video game, like, right? I mean, it's a slapstick video game until you get a gun, right? It's like ridiculous, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I just shot like 20 people in the fucking face. And so it's sort of there's stuff in Hitman that's just a little too rough, I think, that I would probably not. I don't want my son throwing things at people, and so, you know, if he's going to throw a suitcase at people and think it's going to home in on them and hit them, like I can't have that. We have enough rubber ducks around the house that he would start throwing them around and expecting them to explode, and that's not going to work out. But like, they shouldn't be making a Bond game; they should be making a Three Stooges game, you know. But as far as like appropriate age ratings for kids games and all of that, my thing is always, you got to do it by feel. You got to know your kid. You got to know what your kid can handle and can't handle, and go from there. Like, my daughter is 6 and she is like kind of a daredevil. There's not a lot of stuff that scares her, at least in terms of like media and stuff. And you know, roller coasters, like she did a great job last time we went on Space Mountain and some of the stuff that was a little more intense. But I think she's not quite there yet, but my daughter is just about at a point where I think she could handle damn near any Mortal Kombat fatality. maybe not, man, at least from the original trilogy, maybe, you know, at least the original games. Maybe the newer ones are a little too fucked up or a little too realistic looking or something. But like a lot of the fatalities in the first 4 Mortal Kombat games, you know, in the Legacy Collection, if you will, are similarly slapstick in nature. Like they're just kind of ridiculous. Like, oh, I don't know, this big clamp comes out of a robot and just crushes a guy, and yeah, some blood spurts out, but you're like, what, you know, I don't know, this guy put a bomb down his throat and fucking blew the other guy up. Like, is that really gonna fuck you up as a kid? No. Probably not. So yeah, I feel like she's on the verge of being able to see all of that stuff. I don't know why I would show it to her. You know, it's not really something that she's super interested in, but she has played a fair amount of Street Fighter 6. And so, you know, I think after, like, the downhill slide for us into depravity was she saw K-pop Demon Hunters, and they fight in that. They fight the demons, you know. There's kind of just enough fighting in that she's like, now, like, yeah, we're gonna kick ass. We're these girls and we're gonna kick ass. And you're like, okay. And so that led to her having a renewed interest in Street Fighter. And initially I was like, man, and my wife had way more misgivings about this than I did when she discovered that Street Fighter was being played. I was like, well, whatever, man. Like, she's hitting buttons and they're hitting each other. As long as she knows that she can't go around fucking punching other kids, which she's pretty good about knowing that. Then, you know, what are you gonna do? You know, like, it's not so bad. The weird problem I had with Street Fighter is that she wanted to play as all the ladies, and some of those story mode opening movies have like some kind of rough language in them, and I was like, man, I have fucked up by letting her listen to this. Whoops. Oh well. We'll deal with that later, I guess. But yeah, that the actual content of the game, I have not had a real problem with her seeing and engaging with, which has been fine. But yeah, I think, you know, you have to know your kids, and you have to know their limits and what their interests are, and you have to figure all of that out. You know, that's more important to me than like, oh, this is T rated, this is M rated, this is, you know, like the M rating, what does that even really mean? Like, whoops, it has a slight bit of gambling in it or something like that. Like, you know, the M rating sometimes gets layered onto games that shouldn't have it, in my view. But yeah, it is a hard thing to do, and I wouldn't. This isn't advice I would give to any other parent, you know, like directly, and be like, you should let your kid play Street Fighter, because I think that I've always felt that it always depends on the kid. And I think it's the same thing with movies, and it's the same thing with everything else, you know. And I could make the argument that maybe I got exposed to as a kid who was home alone a lot, with HBO and Showtime and all of that. Like, I got the opportunity to see a whole hell of a lot of R-rated movies. You know, so you watch, you know, Marion Cobretti fucking blow a lot of people away, and you're like, fuck yeah, this is fucking cool. And then I had my mom tape Revenge of the Nerds for me because it was on late, and then I was watching it, and she came in the room where it shows full frontal nudity. And I was like, oh geez, I'm in trouble. And she said, if I had known this was in there, I wouldn't have taped it for you. But that was it. That was the only thing she said. And it's like, okay, well, all right, I guess no problem then. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I also don't think it should ever be like, well, that's how it happened for me, so that's how we're gonna do it. Like, the goal isn't to just repeat your upbringing. The goal is to try to improve upon it. I think that's the thing. A lot of parents, when they get into this like fucking dumb hole of like, kids are participation trophies, and I was tough when I was like that, whatever fucking horse shit garbage they tell themselves about how much fucking harder they are than their kids or whatever. It's always so fucking stupid. Because like the goal is to do better. Even if you were raised well, the goal is always to do better, right? So I think, you kind of have to not just do the exact same thing that was done for you. And so when these old men get online and they're like, we drank out of the garden hose. Like, okay. What? We were latchkey kids. Our parents were never around. Like, okay. That's good. Is that a good thing? Is that you're like, yeah, we were tough. Like, fuck off. Fuck off. My parents worked 6 days a week. I had a lot of time to myself. I don't go around and tout that like it's some kind of badge of honor. All right, last question because it just came in. Nicholas writes in and says, I'm a 34-year-old, so I wasn't in the prime viewing audience for Tom Green when he was at his most popular. I recently saw an episode of his show via someone streaming it where he was in Japan. It was the most fucking insufferable thing I have seen. It seemed like he was one of those god-awful IRL streamers just being an ass. Is that just me and my tastes, a different time and different place in the culture, or what? So this is fairly complicated. So that was a special that they did. It was not like a normal episode of his talk show. They did a special show where he went to Japan and did all that shit. I was never like a massive Tom Green fan in that era. I like his MTV show or whatever. That whole thing never really did anything for me. But that thing where he went to Japan, like I remember looking at that and being like, this is fucking fucked. Like, fuck this guy. Like it kind of crossed over into just like, oh, he's just kind of having harmless fun, into just like, yeah, this is just absolute shit. Like this guy is just being a fucking dick. And being like super disruptive to people who fucking did nothing to him, and just like all of that, And so like that specific Japan thing, again, is a separate special. It's a one-off thing. That was not all of what he did. It kind of was part of it. But there was, it was a talk show. There was comedy to it. It wasn't just that. And so I don't know, man. Like, did people think Tom Green sucked shit? I would say at that point in time, I thought Tom Green sucked shit. I thought it was a lot of that stuff was really, is cringy the word? I don't know, like infantile. Like there's just a lot about it that I was just like, yuck. Like I don't want anything to do with any of this shit. I don't think it's that funny. I think the first thing that Tom Green did that I was like, oh, this is actually fucking really good, it was Freddy Got Fingered. I think it's a great fucking movie. I think it's a great fucking movie. And I think when you go back like years later to kind of look at his show and look at what he did and think about the context of all of it, I think there's a lot of stuff he did that was interesting. And I think the stuff he did after that MTV show is actually super fucking important to where we are today. I think when he was doing his live show out of his house, like that is something that I looked at and was just like, that to me was like a blueprint in a lot of ways. Not necessarily from a content perspective, but like you look at it and you go like, yeah, you can just fucking do shit. Like the internet, you can just fucking do shit. And I think that stuff is really interesting. I think he is a credible rapper, which you would not expect. But he put out an album with one of the Dust Brothers, and it's like surprisingly good. Yeah, I think, he's been through the ringer, man. I think he did a lot of really fucking weird shit and some dumb shit, and not all of it is good. And I think that I feel kind of the same way about Eric Andre to a certain extent, where I think a lot of the in-studio stuff is really fucking funny and interesting, and I think a lot of the man on the street stuff sucks for a lot of that same reason of just like, these people just trying to fucking live their fucking lives, man. Everything is such fucking bullshit. Like, who the fuck? I don't have time to fucking deal with this. Like, just yeah. Oh yeah, I don't know. You're fucking being weird on a street corner. Look at you. Like, I just like, fuck you. I don't know. Like, it's something that is not as bad as, but like it gets inches ever so closer to like impractical jokers or whatever, right? There's just like a certain amount of just like, fuck these guys, dude. Just this shit is fucking so stupid. But you know, Bird Up is, we did, it's good. It's good stuff. It's good. Eric Andre is capable of very funny shit. You liked Loiter Squad, Bretter? Yeah, sure, I guess. Yeah, but we would not have Bird Up without. Okay, fine, but sure. But yeah, Tom Green is I might say, and you know, I'm not like immediately familiar with his entire catalog, especially from that time period. But I remember specifically that Japan special being like, that is maybe the worst thing I have seen him do. So if that's the thing you saw and that's the thing you're trying to kind of like judge his whole thing on, then you know that's that stuff's that stuff is bad. And I wonder if he would even say the same thing at this point. Teflon Billy says wonder shows in having kid reporters on Wall Street asking businessmen about how much misery they made today with Beat Kids was good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It is rare that any kind of man on the street stuff is good, but Wonder shows in, I think, did a lot of important stuff. Yeah, you know, Tom Green freestyling with fucking Exhibit and stuff, like just weird out in his house, just real fucking wild shit, you know, just that he is capable of, and just doing that show from, you know, again, turning his house into kind of a studio, and like that was something, again, you know, that was when GameSpot was going south in, you know, let's call it 06, but it was really 07, you know, like there was times when I thought like, man, what would I do if I wasn't doing this, until they kind of made up my mind for me, to have to figure that out. But there was, you know, like I had like drawn up plans for like, okay, if I were to turn my living room into a studio, how would I do that? And it was literally like, okay, like I kind of blocked it out even of just like, okay, well, we'd put a desk here, we put a couch here, we would, you know, camera 1 would be here, camera 2 here. Like, you know, like I literally kind of had that stuff, you know, thought out, for shooting out of the house, and doing something that was, you know, like more or less like a on the spot style thing, from home, you know, in 06, 07. And it's specifically because of what Tom Green was doing. Like, I remember telling people at GameSpot, like, this is like, look at this, like, well, look at what this dude is fucking doing. Like, it's really, like it's really interesting that he's just doing this, you know, like it's not part of some fucking network. It's not part of some, like, you know, like he's just doing this thing, at a time when being live on the internet was hard. Like, we were live on the internet once a week, and it was just the logistics of hosting it and everything. In you know, there were no You know, there was no Twitch TV, like Justin TV. I don't think even existed at that point, and so, but it was starting to happen. Like you were starting to see more and more. Like we had been live on the internet every week for years at that point, but logistically it was still very difficult just to post long videos, like do an hour-long video. It was crazy. It was just ridiculous, like conceptually, to even do it. Yeah, I guess Justin TV was 07, because I remember that dude came to our office with his pack on, and he came and hung out like in our kitchen for a while and then left. I don't know if, because like CNET was there. I don't know if they were interviewing. I don't know what the fuck was going on. But Justin TV with his live pack, live camera thing was there. And so, yeah, I don't know, man. I think a lot of that stuff is really interesting. But like, yeah, the jumpy monkey out, whatever the fuck they called it. Like, even the name is just fucking embarrassing. Yeah, that to me is probably one of the lowest points for Tom Green, in terms of like the shit that he was doing. But yeah, that's gonna do it for the show. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Got to a lot of questions. There was a pretty sizable backlog of questions, and I think we got through just about all of them this week. So congratulations. Podcast@guard.bike. Send in some more emails. We need some more emails, so send them in. That video of me playing Super Mario Brothers Special is probably on YouTube by now. It probably made it through the process, so you could probably go watch that. And of course, I'll be here on Wednesday and Friday. We'll do some stuff. We'll hang out and have ourselves a good time. And I will, of course, see you next Tuesday for another episode of this very podcast. See you then.